We've covered a lot of ground on this channel, but Japanese whiskey is one category we haven't really touched, so we figured it's time.
Today we're ranking the best-selling Japanese whiskeys in the US. From bottom shelf to the highly sought after, we'll discuss your favorites and some that you might want to start adding to your collection.
And speaking of adding to your collection, our merch might be worth a look too.
I have gotten a lot of comments wearing my malt whiskey tee and even our new food pyramid tee. These and a whole lot more are available at barrelhunters.com. Check the description for details. Japanese whiskey has become a popular category in recent years. As a matter of fact, it's been so popular that many distilleries ran out of stock in the 2010s due to increased demand. But Japanese whiskey has actually been around since the 1920s, when Masataka Taketsuru, commonly known as the father of Japanese whiskey, went to Scotland. He learned how to make whiskey and brought that knowledge back to Japan.
But instead of focusing on regional flavors like Scotch does, the goal in Japanese whiskey is balance, and that's really the identity of the category.
Because of that, Japanese whiskey tends to be a little more subtle, relying on notes like apples and pears, with honey, floral, and citrus notes all rounding it out. Japanese Mizunara wood also gives the whiskey a unique sandalwood or incense type of flavor. Even though Japanese whiskey has been around for a while, it wasn't until 2021 when the JSLMA created the first real definition of Japanese whiskey. Now, I will point out that these are industry-enforced standards, not government law, but they are widely followed. And that dreaded caramel coloring is permitted.
Damn it.
I know.
Okay, now that you know a little bit more about Japanese whiskey, let's get into the list. And I should apologize ahead of time for any butchering of pronunciations we do here.
That's right, Ryan. I have been known to butcher a word or two from time to time, and today will probably be no different.
I can't wait to hear it.
Coming in at number 25, we've got Hibiki 21, and this is one of the most respected Japanese whiskeys out there. We even featured it in our 25 whiskeys that you need to try before you die video.
That was a great video, by the way.
That was a great video, and you should watch it after this one. Now, this is a true blend. You've got malt whiskey from Yamazaki and Hakushu, plus grain whiskey from Chita, and it's all brought together by Suntory's blending team. And boy, do they blend this sucker with expertise. This is as close to perfect as it comes for Japanese whiskey. I gave it a 96.
As far as collector items go, this is one you're proud to have, but you're gonna pay a pretty penny for it. You're looking at roughly $800 and sometimes over $1,000 depending on where you find it. But it drinks exactly how you'd expect for a 21-year-old Japanese whiskey. Velvety, fruity, finishes with caramel and sandalwood flavors. I give it a 97.
Wow, look at that, we're starting out strong!
Yes!
Yeah.
Between your 96 and my 97, that averages out to a 97, putting Hibiki 21 in the S tier, and we are off to a hot start. Coming in at number 24, we've got Nikka Yoichi Single Malt, which is about as close to a coastal scotch as you're gonna find in Japan. This is made all the way up in Hokkaido, the northernmost island, and that colder climate slows down the aging process, which helps build a little more depth over time. If you're a fan of coastal scotches like Talisker or Oban, then I think you'll really enjoy Yoichi. I gave it a 94.
This one feels very different compared to Hibiki, and in all the right ways. There's a little bit of light smoke from the peat, some of that coastal saltiness from where it's aged, and even some sweetness underneath to balance it all out beautifully. It's definitely one of the more character-driven Japanese whiskeys out there. It's not as soft and polished as some of the others, but that's what I like about it so much, and that is why I gave it a 92. Between your 94 and my 92, that averages out to a 93, putting Nikka Yoichi Single Malt in the A tier. Coming in at number 23, we've got Miyagikyo. And I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but that's what we're gonna go with. This one's inland in a much more lush environment, and you can feel that right away because it leans heavily into that sherry influence and fruit. You're getting some apples and pears and even some banana notes, but it drinks a little light for me. I enjoy it, but I got a lot more personality from the first two on our list, so I gave Miyagikyo an 82.
Aw man, see, I actually like this one a little bit more. I agree, it's lighter, but at the same time, it's a little more elegant, more fruit forward, and really easy to go back to. That mix of orchard fruit and sweetness, it just works for me. It's totally different from Yoichi, but it's doing its own thing really well. I gave it a 90. Well, between your 82 and my 90, that averages out to an 86, putting Nikka Miyagikyo Single Malt in the B tier. Coming in at number 22, we've got Matsui Peated Cask, and this definitely leans into the smoke. There's a ton of ash, toasted malt, and some white pepper spice. But you can also pick up some red apple and even a little toffee in there. It's an interesting concept, but it doesn't feel fully incorporated either. I gave it a 78.
Yeah, that smoke is definitely the headline, but because the whiskey is so light and delicate, it kind of just smolders it instead of blending it. The bottle looks pretty cool, which is supposed to match that powerful profile, but the whiskey is much more important to me, and it doesn't totally deliver. So I gave it a 79. Between your 78 and my 79, that averages out to a 79, putting Matsui peated cask in the C tier.
So we went from S to A to B to C.
Hey, you know, sometimes the ladder of success goes that path, but we shall climb it back up, my friend.
What kind of fortune cookie wisdom was that?
When in Rome, you know what I mean? Coming in at number 21, we've got Shibui Pure Malt Single Malt. Coming in at number 21, we've got Shibui. Coming in at number 21, we've got Shibui Pure Malt 10 year. Whew. Am I saying that right? Because I kind of feel like I'm sounding like Flavor Flav when I'm saying this thing. The term pure malt basically means it's a blend of single malts, similar to what Scotland would call a blended malt. Flavor-wise, this one leans into darker notes of coffee, chocolate, and a little nuttiness, which is normally right up my alley. And while the flavors are decent, the finish is short, and it's kind of all a little watered down, so I gave it an 83.
Wow, you went way higher here than I did.
Really?
Yes.
It's another one of these?
I think so. When I heard it won Best Asian Whiskey in 2023, I expected something that's really gonna blow my socks off, and I never quite got that. I get the coffee and chocolate notes, but not like something you'd find in something like the Macallan. This one's a little more disjointed, and for what it's supposed to be, I just expected more. I gave this a 71. With your 83 and my 71, that averages out to a 77, putting Shibui Pure Malt 10 year in the C tier.
Shibui!
Coming in at number 20, we've got Ichiro's Malt and Grain. Technically, this is more of a world whiskey. It's a blend of Japanese malt with whiskeys imported from Scotland, Ireland, Canada, and the US. Those are aged anywhere from about 3 to 20 years in their home countries, then brought to Japan and aged another couple years before blending. Flavor-wise, it's got a really nice balance between apricots, caramel, and malt. I gave this a 90.
This is definitely not traditional, but it works nicely. It's a bold move blending whiskeys from 5 different countries, all with varying standards. But at the very end of the day, that sweet and savory flavor profile here absolutely works. It might not be as cool as a name like Shibui, but it's a much better whiskey. I also gave it a 90, so for the first time today, Ryan, we are completely in sync. Our 90s put Ichiro's Malt and Grain in the A tier. Coming in at number 19, we've got Nikka Taketsuru Pure Malt. Now this is an ode to Masataka Taketsuru, who not only was the father of Japanese whiskey like we said before, but also the founder of Nikka. It's a blend of single malts from both Yoichi and Miyagikyo, so it features a mix of light smoke from Yoichi and more of that sherry-driven fruit from the Miyagikyo. That combination adds chocolatey notes on top of everything else, and it is absolutely delicious. I gave it a 91.
Fun fact, that's actually what I'm drinking right now. And this thing is fantastic. You're getting a little bit of everything. You got the smoke, some fruit, some sweetness, and it ends up being a really nice nod to the father of Japanese whiskey. I also gave this a 91, so we've got that in sync magic working again. Our 91s put Nikka Taketsuru Pure Malt in the A tier. Coming in at number 18, we've got Hakushu 12. Everything about this bottle is green. From the bottle itself to the profile, you're getting mint, cucumber, green apple, even a little herbal tea or pine in there. It's got a fresh, almost forest-like character with just a light touch of smoke. It's definitely one of the most unique Japanese whiskeys out there and one of my personal favorites. In fact, it's top tier for me. I gave it a 95.
Wow! Ryan, you're right about it being one of the more distinctive profiles in Japanese whiskey. It's even kind of refreshing with those minty and cucumber notes, and that subtle smoke sits there as if you just walked by a campfire that was put out several minutes ago. But then you breathe it in, Ryan, and you go, ah, this is incredible. Full disclosure, I wrote my score before hearing your excellent points, Ryan, so I feel like I screwed this one up for you. It's still a good score, just not quite S tier. I gave it a 92.
Aw.
Between your 95 and my 92, that averages out to a 94, putting Hakushu 12 in the upper tip top of the A tier, and I feel slightly bad about it.
Good.
All right, that's what happens when I start getting a little bit of a conscience, right?
Before you'd be like, it's in the A tier where it belongs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that guy is back.
Okay.
Thank you for crushing my spirit.
You're welcome. That's what Japanese whiskey does.
Coming in at number 17, we've got Yamazaki 12. Now this one put Japanese whiskey on the map. Back in 2003, it became the first Japanese whiskey to win gold at the International Spirits Challenge. And that's what really kicked off the global demand. Flavor-wise, it's got those quintessential Japanese notes. You get that vanilla and orange and a little bit of spice, and it's everything that you possibly want from a Japanese whiskey, so I gave it a 95.
This comes from Japan's oldest whiskey distillery, dating back to 1923, and it's aged for 12 years across American oak, Spanish Oloroso sherry, and Mizunara casks. It's pretty much a gold standard for Japanese whiskey. Price-wise, you're usually seeing this around the $200 mark now, which is tough, but once you try it, you understand why it's held in that regard for so long. I gave this a 96. Between Eddie's 95 and my 96, it averages out to a 96, putting Yamazaki 12 in the S tier.
Where it belongs. That one belongs in the S tier.
Okay.
The one before it is not as good as this one.
I'm gonna create a burner account and tell you you're wrong in the comments.
Well, thanks for letting me know. Now that I know that, I'm gonna look at every single person that says that I'm wrong, and I'm gonna think it's you, and I'm just gonna delete everybody.
Damn, you see the censorship going on here, folks? I don't like it. Up next at number 16, we've got Yamazaki Distiller's Reserve. This is a bit different from the 12-year we just talked about. First off, it's non-age dated, and it blends younger whiskey aged in Bordeaux wine casks with older whiskey from sherry and Mizunara. Now that gives it a different profile altogether, and this one leans much more into red fruit like strawberries and cherries, making it a little brighter and sweeter overall. It's a slight step down from the 12-year, but still a really good pour. I gave it an 88.
The Bordeaux and sherry influence is what makes those red fruits stand out, while the Mizunara gives it a little structure and spice, and everything nice. It's definitely lighter and not as complex as a 12, but for about half the price, it still delivers a really solid pour. I gave this an 86. Between your 88 and my 86, that averages out to an 87, putting Yamazaki Distiller's Reserve in the B tier. Coming in at number 15, we've got Shinju, and this one is pretty clearly built for mixing. That's even how they market it. It's designed to work in cocktails more than anything else. It's also pretty young, aged around 2 to 4 years in white oak, and it's noticeable. There's faint vanilla and honey notes, but it's pretty subtle overall. I'm gonna give it a 70.
Compared to a lot of other bottles on this list, this one feels a bit weak. There's not a lot of depth going on. There's maybe some citrus notes in there, but that's about it. But if you're looking for something to throw in a cocktail, it does what it's supposed to do. I just wouldn't drink it neat. I gave this a 68. Between your 70 and my 68, it averages out to a 69, making Shinju Japanese whiskey our first entry in the D tier.
It had to happen, Ryan.
Sooner or later.
It had to happen at some point.
Yep. Coming in at number 14, we've got Mars Iway Tradition.
Don't look at me. Yeah, but for all I know, you probably said it right.
How badly did I butcher that one? This is a blend of malt and grain whiskey aged in a mix of bourbon, sherry, and wine casks. So you're getting a little bit of everything going on. Now it's made up in the Japanese Alps at the Mars Shinshu Distillery, which is actually the highest altitude distillery in Japan. And that cooler climate definitely plays into the style. It's okay neat, but better suited for a cocktail. I gave it a 79.
That mix of casks leads to some interesting flavor crossovers. The bourbon casks give it some caramel, there's some ginger present, and then it finishes with that slightly earthy, smoky note. It's got some nice character, but it doesn't quite separate itself from the pack. So I'm gonna give it a 78. Between your 79 and my 78, that averages out to a 79, putting Mars Iway Tradition in the C tier. Or Iway, or EY.
Yeah. However you want to say it, just go ahead.
Who knows?
What are we doing?
Coming in at number 13, we've got Akashi White Oak. And this one's a much easier one to pronounce. Now this drinks a lot like a blended scotch. And do you know why that is, Ryan? I will tell you why. It's because it actually uses imported scotch as part of the blend.
Didn't even let me answer.
I saw you thinking, I'm like, nope, this is gonna take too long. Oh man, some questions are best left unanswered. It's made right on the coast, so it comes with a little bit of that salinity, but overall, there's not a whole lot going on here. You may get a little bit of vanilla or honey, but it's honestly pretty forgettable. I gave it a 68, not even worthy of a 69.
Wow.
Just a 68.
That's saying something. This one didn't leave much of an impression on me either. You do get that slight coastal influence, and the flavor's fine. It just never really builds into anything more. I was slightly higher here with a 74. Between your 68 and my 74, that averages out to a 71, barely putting Akashi White Oak in the C tier. You know, at times, Japanese whiskey can get really confusing. What's real, what's sourced, what actually makes something good. There's a lot to unpack.
And that's something that I actually get into in my new book, The Art of Tasting Whiskey, where I break down Japanese whiskey along with all other major types of whiskeys in the world. And best of all, it's absolutely free for the majority of our Patreon members. You can also chat directly with us on Discord, be involved in monthly live tastings, and even access our upcoming barrel picks. So come on over and join us on Patreon. We would love to interact with you there.
Up next at number 12, we've got Kikori. We've got a little departure from the norm here because it's made from 100% rice. So naturally, people compare it to something like sake, but it doesn't really lean into those heavy umami notes. Honestly, it's closer to something like JT Mellick out of Louisiana, another 100% rice whiskey. It's just lighter and more delicate. There's not too much that excited me about this bottle though, so I gave it a 74.
I'll be honest, I was a little nervous going into this one. We went to a sake distillery together a while back, and that night didn't exactly end well for me. So all those memories just came rushing back. But this is definitely different. It's really light and floral, and it's got a nice melon note to it. It just doesn't bring a lot of complexity compared to a lot of the other ones on this list. I'm gonna give it an 82. Between your 74 and my 82, that averages out to a 78, putting Kikori rice whiskey in the C tier. And Ryan, you pulled that one down. You took away my melon notes. Coming in at number 11, we've got Nikka Coffee Malt. And just to clear up any confusion, there is no coffee in this. Coffee refers to the type of still it's made in. A continuous column still, which is actually pretty rare for a malt whiskey since most of these are distilled in pot stills. That process gives it a different profile. I got butterscotch and caramel in this one, which is pretty different from a lot of the Japanese whiskeys on this list. But it also comes with a slight bit of harshness, so I gave it an 83.
I got those same exact notes. It almost drinks closer to a bourbon profile at times, especially with those ex-bourbon casks bringing out that caramel sweetness. It's unique, it's easy to drink, but it's also a little on the sweeter side, which I enjoy. I gave it an 87. So between your 83 and my 87, this averages out to an 85, putting Nikka Coffee Malt in the B tier. Cracking our top 10, we've got Nikka Coffey Grain, which is different from the malt we just talked about. This is primarily made from corn with a little malted barley, so it leans even closer to a bourbon profile. Between that corn-heavy mash bill and the ex-bourbon barrels it's aged in, you're getting a lot of that familiar sweetness. Caramel, vanilla, even a toasted coconut oat that really stands out. I gave it an 85.
Grain whiskeys can often be a little lighter and less flavorful than malts, but this one actually goes toe-to-toe with its malt counterpart. This one reminds me of a bourbon more than any other bottle on this list. So if those are the flavors that you're looking for in Japanese whiskey, this is your bottle. I gave it an 86. Between your 85 and my 86, that averages out to an 86, putting Nikka Coffey Grain in the B tier. Coming in at number 9, we've got Tenjaku Blended Whiskey. This is made from 86% corn and 14% malted barley, and aged around 3 years in ex-bourbon barrels. So it's a pretty young whiskey that also has those familiar bourbon notes. That would be a good thing in my book if it tasted like a more refined bourbon, but this tastes cheap. It's got a very prominent cereal grain note, and it comes across pretty thin and watery. I gave this crap a 63.
Oh,
take it away.
Honestly, I think this only exists to trick people who are just getting into Japanese whiskey. It looks the part, it's priced nice, and then it tastes like watered down cereal. There's also been some debate around this one in the past, like how it's labeled, where it's actually sourced, which is part of why Japan tightened up what can officially be called Japanese whiskey. I gave this a 67. Between your 63 and my 67, it averaged out to a 65, putting Tenjaku Blended Whiskey in the D tier. Coming in at number 8, we've got Nikka Days, and this is very clearly their entry-level offering. It's bottled at the bare minimum ABV, and it drinks exactly like that, which is fine if you're looking for something easy, but I like something a little more sophisticated. I gave this a 73.
Even Nikka comes right out and says this one doesn't fully meet the criteria to be called Japanese whiskey because they're importing some of the whiskey from Scotland. So I will give them credit for at least being upfront about that. That being said, this is meant to be an everyday whiskey, something that you can throw into a highball or a cocktail without thinking too much about it. In that sense, it works better than Tenjaku, so I gave it a 70. Between your 73 and my 70, that averages out to a 72, putting Nikka Days in the C tier. Coming in at number 7, we've got Kamiki Maltage. Here's another one that looks like a Japanese whiskey, but it's really more of a world whiskey since it uses some imported grain-forwarded whiskey in its blend. This was marketed as the first whiskey finished in Japanese cedar, and you really get that on the nose. It's a strong, almost incense-like wood note that's pretty unique. I gave it an 85.
I actually bought this as a gift for Eddie before I really knew anything about Japanese whiskey. And looking back on it now, I feel like I might have gotten duped a little bit.
I love it. I'm drinking that right now. I think that that's a very fantastic whiskey. Even if it's been blended, it doesn't matter. It's all about the enjoyment.
It's definitely unique with that cedar note, but I knocked it down several points for being misleading. I gave it a 70. Between your 85 and my 70, that averages out to a 78, putting Hibiki maltage in the C tier.
That's rough. That was rough. You definitely knocked it down a bunch of points.
I think so, yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna apologize to it on your behalf. I'm sorry, Hibiki.
Up next at number 6, we've got Koriyoshi Pure Malt. It's a blend of 100% single malts, but some of that is sourced from Scotland and then blended and aged in Japan. It's also pretty young, around 3 years in ex-bourbon barrels. There's a hint of orchard fruit and some vanilla, but after that, there's just not much going on. I gave it a 69.
You know, I don't think that the blending part really bothers me too much. Ultimately, I care about the taste, and this one doesn't really deliver. It's as forgettable as they come.
I thought you were going one way with that, and then you're like, it's really the taste that matters, and this one sucks.
It's not the worst whiskey out there, but it just doesn't really provide any flavors besides the ones that Ryan just mentioned. I also gave this sucker a 69, so at least we're in sync. Our 69s put Koriyoshi Pure Malt Whiskey in the D tier. Coming in at number 5, we've got Toguchi 3-Year. This is a brand that used to source from Scotland and Canada, but now they're fully in line with Japanese whiskey standards. That said, their own distillate is still pretty new, so this is still a young, grain-forward whiskey, around that 3-year mark, and it shows. I gave this a 67.
I get some light fruit and citrus up front, but it's still very grainy and a bit rougher on the edges. I do like where this is headed though. If they keep building on this and give it more time, there's definitely potential. But right now, it's just not quite there. I gave it a 65. Between your 67 and my 65, that averages out to a 66, putting Toguchi 3-Year blended in the D tier. Coming in at number 4, we've got Kayo the Single. Now I want you to think of this as the Jeffersons of Japanese whiskey. This thing is aged about 7 years in ex-bourbon barrels, finished in Mizunara, and then sent out to sea for months to supposedly change the flavor. And we've always thought the whole aged at sea thing was kind of gimmicky with Jeffersons, so I'm not suddenly buying into it here either. I gave it an 80.
Setting the gimmick aside, it actually does have some solid notes. You get coconut and vanilla from the Mizunara and bourbon casks, and it goes down pretty easy. But for something that literally spends some time at sea, I expected a lot more of that salty coastal influence, and it doesn't really show up here. So I'm gonna give this an 82. Between your 80 and my 82, that averages out to an 81, putting Kayo the Single in the B tier. Not bad for a bottle that's been aged in a way that didn't really affect the flavor whatsoever. Coming in at number 3, we've got Nikka from the barrel. This is yet another Japanese whiskey where part of the blend comes from Scotland. It just goes to show the influence Scotch has always had on Japanese whiskey. What you get here is a crazy blend of over 100 different malt and grain whiskeys brought together and bottled at 51.4% ABV, which is way higher than most Japanese whiskeys. Flavor-wise, it's got everything you'd expect from a massive blend. Floral and sherry notes, a little smoke, and somehow it feels incredibly polished and layered. I gave it a 93.
You know what? I don't care what the label says here, because unlike many of the other fake Japanese whiskeys, this is a really, really good whiskey. And that higher proof is a big part of it. Most Japanese stuff sits in that 40 to 46% range, and this comes in at 51.4%, so it actually has some huevos. I love the smoky finish to it, and it's one of my go-to bottles of Japanese whiskey also. I gave this a 94. So between your 93 and my 94, that averages out to a 94, putting Nikka from the barrel in the upper A tier. Coming in at our runner-up, we've got Hibiki Japanese Harmony. And this is about as dependable as it gets when it comes to Japanese whiskey. This is an absolute masterclass in blending, pulling together around a dozen different malt and grain whiskeys aged across 5 cask types. You get that signature sandalwood note from the Mizunara, along with honey and a little orange peel. It's just incredibly well balanced every single time you pour it. I gave it a 91.
Every time I crack this beautiful bottle open, I know exactly what I'm getting. It's consistent and it's easy to enjoy for newbies and whiskey veterans alike. We always recommend this as an everyday sipper. It's something that you can pour for yourself or share with your friends who might be Japanese whiskey curious and know it's going to be a hit. I gave this one a 93. Between your 91 and my 93, that averages out to a 92, putting Hibiki Japanese Harmony in the A tier. All roads lead to this, Ryan, the best-selling Japanese whiskey in the US, which is Suntory Toki. This might be the perfect example of a light-bodied Japanese blend. It's built from Yamazaki, Hakushu, and Chita, but it leans more into those brighter, fruitier notes like green apple and grapefruit that you get from Hakushu. It's clean, refreshing, dare I say smooth, and super easy to drink. I think it's a fairly decent sipper, but its best use is in highballs. I gave this an 83.
Once you throw this over ice with soda, it almost transforms. Those citrus notes pop more, it gets even lighter, and it just works, especially on a hot day. But if we're judging it as a whiskey on its own, there are other options on this list that are more robust. It's built to be refreshing, not complex, and that's exactly how it drinks. I gave this an 80. Between your 83 and my 80, that averages out to an 82, putting Suntory Toki in the B tier.
Japanese whiskey might have started by following Scotch, but at this point it continues to carve out its own lane. And hopefully this gave you a clearer picture of what makes it unique.
And I don't care if you're into highballs, neat pours, or just trying something new, there is a lot more going on in this category than people realize. Till next time,
Cheers.